Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins here. We got a special report for you today. NASA, they got a lot of explaining to do. The ISS is continuing to have their cameras feeded onto the Earth itself, and something was captured within their lens. Was it meant to be shown to the public? We're not exactly sure, but we were submitted this information from a good friend of ours, and he's got a great YouTube channel. His name is Mick Proctor, and he was sent this footage, and he's still wondering if this footage is indeed authentic or not. He is still trying to find out the original source from the ISS feed as posted from NASA. So if anybody out there keeps their eyes on these live feeds and can match up this frame and this video to this video, and if the object is indeed there, then we've got something. Let's just watch it for a moment. This is kind of a mind bender. It just took off. Let's roll it one more time, and we're going to add some brightness, contrast, and some enhancements in a bit, but we're looking at this thing, and if this isn't a UFO, I don't know what is. Brett, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, shout out to Mick Proctor for giving the heads up on this video. Look at that. It's cruising along, and it banks out a view of the lens itself from the ISS. Then it just kind of creeps there and moves at some weird motions and actions. It's kind of unfathomable what this is. Is it a satellite? Well, we've never seen anything like this. Let's just watch this again a little closer.
Again, we're trying to get to the original source of the video from NASA to match up the landscape, the clouds, and if we could find the source original and then link it with this video, and if this object is indeed in the same frame, now we got something, because what we're looking at, in my opinion, if again is authentic, is absolutely incredible of what the phenomenon is all about. And that's what we're here for right here at Third Phase of Moon. Now let's get to this. Michael Schratt, he's been working on his new channel called, and we've been helping out behind the scenes, getting his information into a digital form so he could open up his incredible new channel. We're working with him on a daily basis right now, and he's a full pedal to the metal. Michael Schratt is not one of these guys that goes only half speed. If he's going to get into it, he's full speed, full throttle, 100%. It's crazy, and we're working really closely with them every day to get that video up on Blue Room Media. The link is in the description, but let's take a look at some of the productions that he's been putting out recently. Watch this.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everyone for growing this channel. We're getting more subscribers, so we're definitely maintaining an important part of our national history. And please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to grow this channel. I've prepared more cases for you, and I have the paperwork and documentation to back them up. Certainly want to always use the source material so that we really have something as a foundation to stand on with these cases. Now, we'll go ahead and begin with the first case now. So we have the first case pulled up here. This came from QFOS, which is Center for UFO Studies in Chicago. And the date is September 4th, 1967, Thessaloniki, Greece. And basically the setup on this case is that two brothers were on the third floor of their home, and one of them was fixing stereo equipment. The other one was just kind of looking out toward the city. And all of a sudden, this 25-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that had a number of lighted portholes along the outer circumference starts approaching this brother. And so this brother said, "Dimitri, come see this. What is this?" So the gentleman who was fixing the stereo equipment, he ran over to his brother. They both looked up, and they saw this 25-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It started getting closer and closer and closer. And then, ladies and gentlemen, it parked itself literally 20 feet above both their heads. Can you imagine this? 20 feet above their head. Very close sighting. We'll go ahead and move on to the next slide here. And you can see how close this was. It had kind of this dull gray gunmetal appearance. Again, you can see the lights around the outer circumference, and it had a dome on top. A very interesting configuration. And what I thought was very interesting, after reading the 5-page report and the flight path drawing that came with this, the primary eyewitness said that this thing did not fly, okay? What he said is that it was gliding on an oil path in the sky. Those are his exact words, and I wanted to highlight that because it's just so unique. It's such an interesting way to describe this. So an oil path in the sky, that really describes how these things float very slowly across the sky. Now, eventually this craft moved off to the left and almost hit another building, but cleared that one and then slowly departed. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide here. And you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is his original sketch. It's actually better than the drawing I put together. So I want to give him credit for this. So again, 25 feet in diameter. You can see it has a 5 to 6 foot diameter dome on top. The total cross-section height is about 7 feet. And then he's got these illuminated windows around the outer circumference. Very good drawing. So when you have a good drawing, when you have a flight path drawing, and you have a multiple eyewitness with at least a 5-page report, folks, it's a real case. It's a real case. It really boils down to how much do we trust our fellow men, our fellow women, our friends. So that's really what it's really all about. So we'll move on to the next case now. All right, now, this is an interesting case because I actually interviewed both witnesses. This is July 14th, 1978, Santa Clarita Valley, California. It was 9 p.m. Now, the primary eyewitness was just about ready to begin cleaning his pool. He had one of these long poles with a brush at the end of it. So his wife and children were kind of in the connecting room watching television. So he got up, he started, it's around 9 p.m. He starts cleaning with that long pool on the bottom of the pool. And all of a sudden, this 65-foot diameter dish-shaped craft hovers over the pool. It eventually parks itself 20 feet above the pool. Can you imagine such a close sighting? It's only 20 feet above the pool. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one here. And you can see this is the drawing that I did based on his original sketch. And we'll go along this thing really slowly here at the very top here. So no visible markings or insignias, no visible seams or rivets. Object wobbled slightly. Craft exhibited no noise. UFO flew above the pool at an altitude of, well, he said now, the latest information, about 20 feet. Now, what I want to highlight is it had about 10 dark colored porthole windows wrapped around the outer circumference of the dome itself. And then on the bottom, there was this concave section, and then indented into the concave section were these rectangular sections. There were 2 of them. And then there was this 8 by 4 foot forward clear transparent window where they could look inside. It appeared to be kind of lit inside. 18 feet diameter for the upper dome. The craft was about 15 feet tall, highly reflective finish. But then what I really want to discuss is if you look closely at the side view here, you'll notice that there's this S-shaped ski device, another one of these prongs or protrusions sticking out. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide here. And this is his original sketch from the actual eyewitness. So side view projection based on partial view from underside of craft, dome and center of craft, 4 to 5 windows. That's actually more than that now. And lights visible on approach, but no visible light hardware seen when close. Entire craft luminous as if light came from within. So that's what the original sketch looks like. And it was 20 feet above the pool. We'll move on to the next slide now. Here's his bottom view. And you can see this S-shaped prong device. It almost looks like Santa's sleigh, the rails on Santa's sleigh, or wrought iron he also mentioned, because I've got a new report from him. Concave center section, bottom of craft, equal distance in relation to the diameter. So there was these 2 rectangular devices built and integrated into this bottom concave section. Now we'll move on to the next slide here. And you can see I asked him when I did the interview to do a rough sketch of what these prongs look like. And he actually did. This is his original sketch of what these prongs look like. So it's got this S-shaped curve to it, and then another curve below that. And then within this S-shaped curve, there's more of these, you could call them scallop curves within the S-shaped curve. That's what he described. He kind of thought that this was like a hanging device. He didn't quite know what that was. Wife saw it as well. Again, are we looking at a high voltage electrical dissipation apparatus? That could be what we're looking at here. So this is the detailed view of S-shaped rails on the bottom ledge of the craft. We'll move on to the next slide here. Okay, so what I did is I took his original sketch, I did a side view, and now you can see the S-shaped ski rail with this integrated scallops on the inside. So I think that's very interesting. Now, if we move to the next slide, he did mention that it reminded him of wrought iron designs, or kind of like a wrought iron fence. And so that's what we pulled up here. So you can imagine these sticking out of the leading edge of the craft itself. Now, at this point, this has been about a year and a half. I actually interviewed both the husband and the wife. They described this in detail. And we're going to skip on to rolling the clip, about a 3-minute clip, where they describe this craft in detail and the S-shaped prong as well.
Somewhere like that. Okay. And height, I looked at where it was, situated above the ground, and looked at our second floor of our house.
Right.
And I thought, okay, so 1.5.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Height, whatever that may have been.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the way I, judged it by looking at other things around it. Right.
Right.
Now,
Okay. Any electrical humming noise whatsoever?
absolutely zero.
Nothing. Huh?
Silence.
Not a sound.
Really.
Not a sound.
Just amazing. Amazing.
Another thing, and then I suspected, I thought, okay, this must be a joke. Somebody's playing something on us. And so I started looking up in the sky, usually expecting it to be hanging from somewhere or something. And there was no airplane, no small craft. And the fact that it was just sitting in one spot would have been very difficult, for an airplane to be circling around or something and be holding this thing. So, but that was my first, I looked and looked and looked to see what is it where's it hanging from? There was nothing there.
Okay, so was it hovering over the pool stationary, or was it moving with the wind?
Stationary,
Stationary.
but I described it as a slight little wobble, just a very slight wobble. And you would say, well, wind, but there was no wind.
Okay.
There was zero wind. It was just always just a very slight wobble.
Okay.
Very slight, right? I think she saw it. At that point, I think, but I described it, we were like frozen. Mesmerized, but we're frozen. We weren't afraid.
Right.
Wow.
That was the amazing thing. You're not afraid. You're just amazed what you're looking at, and you can't believe it. It's just not supposed to be there.
So not drifting with the wind whatsoever?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay. And then in both of your professional assessments, what do you think was the purpose of the 2 long rectangular beams on the bottom of the craft?
Okay. Here's where we not differ, but I look at details more so than maybe Gloria does, and I don't think she'll argue that point. I looked at mostly, I fixed my eyes on, I don't see any rivets, I don't see this, there's a lot of that I wasn't seeing, okay?
Right.
The only thing I noticed was this kind of like a ski-like device in the front, right? But with little curves within these skis, little teeny curves,
Okay.
and little other curves within that, right? And I couldn't figure out, I tried to redesign or the curves that I was looking at, to me, like it's foreign. It's like looking at a foreign language and saying I'm going to be able to write the alphabet right after that. I couldn't. What it was, I don't know. At first I thought it was some kind of a hanging device,
Okay.
docking device.
Okay.
But, yeah, I don't know.
How about you? What do you think? There was those 2 long
Right,
rectangular things on the
yes.
bottom. What do you think those could have been
They
for?
were, on the bottom. I have no clue. Like he says, probably a docking, right? But we don't. No.
The only thing in my mind is, and I express it in other things.
Sure.
I said, you're an advanced society, you're an advanced nation.
Yes,
This is not,
exactly.
first of all, it's not from Earth. That was my conclusion right away. And if you're that far advanced, why would you need to hang in dark
Yeah,
gravity or
exactly.
something like that?
Sure.
Yeah.
It didn't seem logical to me for that to be that. I still don't know.
In the video clip that we just watched, the primary eyewitness actually described these wrought iron prongs, or this electrical discharge apparatus coming off the leading edge of the craft. That was a very good interview, and he described it in detail. All right, so this is the famous Father Gill case, Papua New Guinea, June 26, 1959. Now, I want to point out that Father Gill was the primary eyewitness, but there were 24 other eyewitnesses to back this up. So, at least 25 eyewitnesses total. So it's around 6 p.m. at night, and Father Gill is alerted to a strange craft hovering over the mission. And the craft was described as being like a 2-tiered wedding cake, which you see in this illustration here. So it's 35 feet in diameter for the bottom tier of the wedding cake. The top tier was about 20 feet in diameter. It had these poles or legs sticking out, which to this day, we don't know if those are landing gear legs. They could be lights that stopped in midair, because we've had multiple cases of these UFOs that have lights that stop like in midair. That's something we've heard of too. Now, there were 4 men, described as men, up on the top deck of this craft. 2 of them were forward on the forward lip of the top deck. The other 2 were further back toward the center. They were slightly obscured, and it looked like they were setting up some type of machinery. Okay, it's so weird. Now, another description for this entire case is something called "they wave back." That's also what this case is called, "they wave back." So what Father Gill did is he put his arm above his head and he was waving to these guys on the top deck, and they actually waved back. So this is a CE1 case. It's a CE3 case because there's beings involved. Now, what happened next is he had a flashlight, and he was waving this flashlight in the direction of the craft, and it responded and started moving kind of in the same rate as the flashlight. Now we'll move on to the next slide here. Okay, so here's the reference of the map showing you where this took place. You can see Northwest New Guinea, and if you look at the bottom right, those are the villages where this actually took place. We'll move on to the next slide, and I'll do an enlargement here. You can kind of get a view here. So if you look at Goodenough Bay, where it's inscription there, and then you look just south of there, that's exactly the area that we're talking about here. We'll move on to the next slide. I'll enlarge it for you. And here you see the sketch of what this craft looked like, emanating this light. And this is the exact area that we want to focus in on. We'll move on to the next slide here. Okay, so what you're looking at now, ladies and gentlemen, is an original sketch by Father Gill himself. This is his sketch. So again, 25 eyewitnesses. Now, about 30 minutes into this particular sighting, 2 of these beings went inside the deck of the craft, and there was this 45-degree angled blue-white colored light that shot off at about a 45-degree angle. That was seen as well. We'll move on to the next slide here, and we'll get some additional illustration. Now, this is a really good rendering by my good friend Tom Bogan, and you can see the men on the top deck of the craft. We see this 45-degree angle with this light blue, white colored light coming off at this angle. Very interesting. It's got to be top 5 UFO cases in the history of ufology for sure. We'll move on to the next slide now. Here's one particular drawing. So there's so many references for this. There's so many different drawings. International Reporter, they did a very good job on this. And you can see this is November 1977, International UFO Reporter, and you've got all the people in this mission who are watching this. Now, they were interviewed after this took place separately, and they basically were sort of interrogated and allowed to draw what the craft looked like individually. And when they brought these drawings together, they're really matched. So I think we can really bank on this case. We'll move on to the next slide here. Here's another depiction of what this sighting looked like. You can see these men on top with these 4 prongs coming out, or legs or landing gear. And this two-tiered wedding cake. Bottom tier was 35 feet in diameter. Upper tier was 20 feet in diameter. We'll move on to the next slide here.
I want to thank Michael Schratt for his incredible work on the historical UFO files coming in through the history books and the investigation to bring the archives the way he does. He is like no other in this field, and it's our pleasure to work in close proximity with Michael, getting the information out. Again, his channel, Blue Room Media, he just put up an upload just moments ago. Again, the link is in the description. Hit that thumbs up over there at Michael Schratt's channel, Blue Room Media, and tell him Third Phase of Moon sent you. Guys, we really appreciate you sharing your UFO videos coming in from the public. And my contact as well is in the description. Upload that UFO video to YouTube. Copy paste that link to my email. We'll share your UFO evidence, the phenomenon, as fast as possible. That's what we do. Don't claim to be experts in this UFO phenomenon. We're just the experts getting out the information as fast as possible for the public to consume and make up their own minds of what they're seeing in our videos. Appreciate it, guys. The support means a lot. Blake Cousins, we'll see you real soon.